In 2035, the first expedition arrives on the Red Planet. After some time, people discover a strange white formation not far from the base. They think that water is being squeezed to the surface. The team sends a message about the discovery to the command center on the space station. After some time, 4 crew members are sent to the formation's location for further investigation. When people arrive at the site, they see a high mountain, which the radar detects as mechanical. Then the astronauts begin to hear a strange low sound, but they are sure that this is just interference from their rover. When they increase the power of the equipment, the sand under their feet begins to move. But at first, it doesn't cause much excitement. The astronauts remain in place and look at the mountain, above which a sand whirlwind appears. The hurricane behaves like an intelligent creature that first looks at the humans and then attacks them. In an instant, it kills 3 astronauts, after which it releases a powerful electromagnetic pulse that destroys most of the electronics on board the ship. After the whirlwind subsides, a huge human face, carved from dense material, appears from under a layer of sand. At the space station, they receive an illegible message from Luke, but do not understand what happened and whether himself is alive. The management understands that it is necessary to organize a rescue expedition. Jim offers to solve this problem because he was developing plans for evacuation from Mars. The station commander agrees to review the plan, but opposes Jim's participation in the expedition because the man refuses to take tests and left the project earlier. Woody Blake insists on including his friend in the crew because his refusal to take the first flight was for a good reason. He was very worried about his wife. In addition, it was he and his wife who studied and designed the flight to Mars. Jim knows more about this planet than anyone else, which will certainly help in the rescue mission. After listening to his arguments, the commander agrees, and the rescue ship with a crew of 4 people sets off for Mars. After some time, the surface of Mars can already be seen from the ship. People notice that the expedition camp is intact, and even see 3 burial mounds next to the building. It is not clear what happened to Luke. Maybe there was simply no one to bury him. Soon, the planet is getting covered by a magnetic storm, and the astronauts can no longer see anything. The command gives permission for landing. Woody goes to tell Jim about this. He finds him watching a family film from which it becomes clear that his wife was also an astronaut, and together with her husband, she dreamed of flying to Mars. The ship is preparing to move into the orbit of the Red Planet, but then a meteor shower appears on its way. One of the meteorites breaks through the casing and injures Phil's hand. The station begins to lose oxygen. Woody goes into outer space to find and repair the hole, but the hole is so small that it cannot be found visually. Then Terry squeezes out the juice, which floats to the crack and seeps through it, indicating the hole. However, the crew does not notice another hole in the fuel line of one of the main engines. When the engine is ignited, the fuel explodes, destroying the ship. The crew quickly puts on their spacesuits and goes into outer space. They hope to maneuver to the supply module remaining in orbit from the first expedition. The team finds the module, but it is moving in a low orbit for them and way too fast. Woody uses all the fuel in his rocket pack to fly to the module and attaches a cable to it. However, he himself fails to stop his flight, and he continues to fall to Mars. Terry tries to save her husband and disconnects the cable, but Woody understands that if the girl continues to save him, she will not have enough fuel to return, and the woman will face inevitable death. Then the man takes off his helmet and dies. Terry cries and watches as her husband's body falls to the planet and then returns to the survivors. 3 astronauts use the module to land on the planet, but the module itself will no longer be able to take off. The team takes the motherboards for the ship of the first expedition to replace the burnt ones. They arrive at the first expedition's base and search it, but find no one. But the residential block is completely intact. Jim goes to the greenhouse and is surprised that all the plants are doing great. All systems are working here. The astronaut takes off his helmet, and in the reflection on the water, he sees Luke with an axe. The man attacks him because he does not believe that this is a real person. After some time, Luke is grabbed, and only then he begins to believe that they have come for him. Upon learning of Woody's death, he cries. The astronauts understand that Luke is not alright in his head, because he spent more than a year on Mars in complete isolation from the world. After being attacked by a sand whirlwind, he buried the dead and began studying the strange structure. He shows the rescue team a video of the discovery. People are amazed when they realize that in front of them is the face of a humanoid. Luke then demonstrates his most important discovery, a recording of the sound he heard near the structure. After several months of analyzing this sound, he realized that it was a diagram of human DNA on a rectangular coordinate system in space. Someone left this here as their signature. A little later, Jim remembers how Phil created the DNA of his ideal lover from candy. The man understands that this is not a signature, but a kind of text that the creators left instead of a lock guarding the entrance. It turns out that the first expedition died because they answered incorrectly. Instead of adding DNA to prove they were human, the astronauts pointed radar at the face. Since the answer was incorrect, the security system of the structure destroyed the violators. The team decides to go there, but first they send a robot and transmit a signal through it with added elements of human DNA. An entrance appears in the face, from which a bright light shines. Woody gives Phil the command to take off after some time, even if they don't return, after which the people enter the white hole. The door closes, and the astronauts lose contact with the ship. Then the room is filled with the Earth atmosphere and people take off their helmets. Another gateway opens behind. The team goes through it and finds themselves in a dark room. Inside, they see a huge three-dimensional projection of the solar system. Then a hologram of the Martian appears. He silently explains to people that in the long past a huge asteroid fell on Mars, which destroyed the ecosystem of the planet, which is very reminiscent of Earth. The Martians had to evacuate the entire race to other star systems. But they also sent one ship from Mars to neighboring Earth, which contained the embryos of future life. Hundreds of millions of years later, multicellular plants and animals appeared on the planet. Many years passed and new forms of life developed and became people. One day, they had to return home to Mars, so that the giant face would recognize them as the descendants of this experiment. The hologram extends its hand to the team, making it clear that they belong to the same species, and then disappears. The hatch of a spaceship opens in front of people, on which one of them can fly to the creators. At this time, Phil unsuccessfully calls his friends and prepares for takeoff. People hear his warning that the storm is getting stronger and will soon cover the ship. They understand that they need to hurry. But Jim refuses to return to Earth when the opportunity arises to fly to another galaxy. He is sure that this is an invitation and he was born to get into the new world. Jim says goodbye to his friends. Terry gives him a small rocket pendant that once belonged to Woody, after which the astronauts leave. At this time, Phil repeats the calls, but does not receive an answer and prepares to press the start button. Jim ends up in a light elevator, which takes him into the Martian ship. The two remaining astronauts barely manage to reach their ship. They were lucky, because Phil, contrary to orders, delayed takeoff. Meanwhile, Jim steps into the circle that appears in front of him and suddenly realizes that he cannot move. The water begins to fill up the space. The man is preparing for the fact that he is about to choke and holds his breath. But after a while, he takes a breath and begins to breathe in the water. He understands that this is a new form of life. Frames of his past life flash before him, and the man seems to be saying goodbye to everyone once again. The crew takes off and watches as the Martian ship flies away at great speed towards a distant galaxy.